Hello and welcome to the breakdown. It's been quite a long break, but Sabir and I are back with the week's action of this Singer Schools League. The A Division Cup competition has now condensed into 8 teams. We're bringing you the 4 matches from this weekend. Let's start at the top. Sabir, Isipathana 43 points to 8 against Wesley on Monday. I expected Isipathana to win, but not by 43 points against Wesley. They're a team that has been hit tremendously by injuries, but despite the underfoot conditions, despite the wet ball, Isipathana still managing to run in 7 tries. Outstanding from them. Gayan Vikramaratne scoring the first 2 tries. Lahiru Viswajit, Sumudu Rankotke, Ranidhu Pramod, Chamod Fernando and Ravidu Anjana also scoring tries. Padmasankar converting 3 of those. Gayan Vikramaratne had 1. And for Wesley, it was just a 1 try from Avish Kali, and he converted a penalty as well. It was 10-3 at half-time, but 43-8 at full-time.
That's right, Wesley lost the plot in the second half, Shanaka, but Isipathana, we were talking about the number 12-13 combination, Kushan and Rankotke. Even Rankotke knocking on 3 times with the wet ball, they still managed to score 8 tries. So that shows the capability. But adding to that, Shanaka, the combination of the fullback Gayan Vikramaratne and Chamod Fernando, that makes a solid unit, Shanaka. Probably these 4 would represent the under-20 without, arguably, maybe there are some more to come, but it will be interesting call. But Wesley, Shanaka, the injuries, like you said, their last year's captain Omar Kutubuddin was not there, so that's a big error for them, big loss for them. And also their scrum half Avish Kali, he was moved to wing because Chamod Fernando scored, made some lovely yards and put few offloads to Gayan Vikramaratne, and then Coach Jeevan saw that, and in the second half he moved Avish Kali to the wing position to stop Fernando, but he was made a little too much speed into his timing. As a result, Chamod Fernando scored the try. And also they put Jurampati as number 9 and then Murshid Zubair as number 9. It didn't work well. The game, even it went a bit slower than they started, but on the other hand, it's credit to Isipathana. They are showing, doesn't matter what the weather condition is, doesn't matter what the field condition is, they are still scoring tries.
Yeah, and what's good to see is that they're not changing their style of play, Sabir. It doesn't matter what is in front of them. They continue to play to their own strength, and that's really good to see. I thought Wesley were tactically naive as well, because Chamod Fernando and Vikramaratne were so dangerous, and there were a few kicks that went straight into their hands. Suicide kicks, I call them, when you kick it into the hands of a guy like Chamod Fernando with so much space. And apart from the tries that he scored, he actually created quite a few for others with those lovely inside balls that Isipathana use as well. But Wesley, you've got to feel sorry for them. They've got, like you said, Kutubuddin out. They've got Dinesh Ranavir out, who might have made a difference in defense against Chamod Fernando, because he's also a very quick player. Vimukti, the prop forward, is playing with 10 stitches in his mouth. Avish Kali has fractured his fingers since the last game. Jurangpati is recovering from a dislocated shoulder. So lots of problems that Wesley are having. And going into this third round with all those injuries, they might not live up to the potential that we thought they would.
Yeah, the next match, of course, Science, even they play like Isipathana, similar style. But also, I think Wesley let Isipathana run. They didn't rush enough as a team, as a defensive line, because when you allow space for Isipathana threes, they can see the space because they play most of the sevens game. That's what it went most of the time in the second half.
Yeah, and again caused by a positional shift. Danista Gunitilaka, the vice captain, also injured. Then Avanta Hashan coming into number 13. So when that centre combination changes against the quality of guys like Indunil and Rankotke, you're asking for trouble. So that was a problem, but a superb performance from Isipathana. They've still suffered a few conversion problems. They converted only 4 of the 8 tries that they scored. So 16 points could be added to this score. It could be as much as 60 points, close to 60 points. And we were just discussing, Sabi, that they've not converted 21 of the tries they have scored. They scored 43 tries, not converted 21. That's 84 points going a big, 44 points going a biggie, 42 points going a biggie. So that's the problem. So for Isipathana, if they can work on that, that's a huge blow.
Absolutely, and that's the game we had at the Royal Complex. The game initially scheduled to play on Friday, and then they moved to play on Monday. And moving on to the next game, Shanaka, you were in the commentary box, St. Thomas's versus St. Anthony's Karugastota. But it was a very close. At one time, St. Thomas's were leading. In fact, St. Anthony's were leading 11 points to 10 just before the halftime, maybe 5-6 minutes before the halftime. St. Thomas was hitting back with 2 tries.
Yeah, it was a very close game. Actually, the scoreboard doesn't reflect it. It was a 41-11 victory in the end for St. Thomas's. It was 22-11 at halftime, but it was 11-5. It was 11-3 actually at one stage. Sabir Navin Henakan Kanamge scoring 2 tries. Sanjeev Ahangama, Sharit Nanak Kara, Christian Delail, and Ashwanta Herat also scoring tries, and Herat converting 4 and putting over that first penalty as well. Bandara scoring the only try. Actually, there were 2 tries in this. I think it was Vikramarachi that scored one of those tries as well, and Madhuanta put over 2 penalties for. It was actually Vikramarachi that scored the try for St. Anthony's, and Samuel Madhuanta put over those 2 penalties. So it was a very good try early on. It was a kick chase. Ferdinando fumbled the ball in his own in goal, and Vikramarachi with about a 60-meter chase actually managed to touch down. So it just shows how good a kick chase can make a bad kick into a good kick. It was outstanding play from St. Anthony's. I spoke to Coach Vaipu Gunaratna after the game, and he was saying that what they wanted to do was try and tire this big St. Thomas's forward pack out by kicking to the sides, making them run backwards. And for a while that seemed to be working, but unfortunately Madhuanta fumbled a couple of restarts, and it was from there that St. Thomas's hit back in that 10-minute period before half-time. And just like the All Blacks do, Sabir, when they score on either side of half-time, it can really trouble the other team. But for large amounts of that first half, St. Anthony's was a dominant side, but St. Thomas's came back into it through those big forwards, and it's very difficult to keep them down because they've got fitness and strength to match their size as well. So that's something that teams coming up against them will have to consider. But it wasn't a dominant performance by St. Thomas's. The 41 points to 11 scoreline doesn't dictate how close the game actually was, and I think Coach Laga also has been suffering quite a few injuries to his side, and as a result he's probably taken it a little easy on the preparation side in the last 3 weeks that they've had a break, and that was evident in the way that St. Thomas has played. But now that they've got a game under their belt, going forward into the harder matches, I think they'll be up for it.
How impact it was the number 8 playing in the wing position. And also I want to ask you, you were there, did Mount Breeze was the issue for Samuel Madhuanta's kick?
Well, I think it was, Sabir. We actually spoke about it with Paul on the commentary as well, because just over the wall of the big club grounds, there's a line of coconut trees that actually line just a railway line parallel to the railway line, and that prevents the breeze from coming in at ground level. But the moment Madhuanta puts a high kick up just above the line of those trees, the ball gets grabbed and it goes in towards the land side, because that's where the breeze was coming from. And both the kickoffs that he fumbled, and he's a very good player, both the kickoffs that he overkicked were into that breeze. So he didn't read that too well, and a couple of touch kicks that he tried to kick from penalties also found their way back into the ground. So I think that was a bit of a problem for them. They weren't familiar with the ground conditions, which is why I always say you need to get out there and practice on the ground before you start your warm-up, especially the kickers. You absolutely have to get that training done. But it affected them a little bit, but it wouldn't have changed the result of the game, Sabir, let's put it that way. But it was a very, I think it was a courageous and sort of good performance by St. Anthony's for the future. I think this is a side that's young. I think they're going to get better as they go on game by game, and this was a very good performance from them. They've made good use of that 3-week break.
And also not forgetting, when you talk about the performance, Navin Henakan scoring another 2 tries. So he is one of the superb star. He scored already 9 tries. He's the leading try scorer. Also Samuel Madhuanta has the leading point scorer with 66 points. And moving on to the next game, Shanaka, it was Trinity versus Science College. Trinity were leading 7 points to nil, and the full-time score, it was 15 points to 12. Science scoring probably their try of the season inside their own goal line, Shanaka, and lovely work, pretty much the 7 style, and Sajid Roshan from the winger, he just ran 50 meters and beat the last man and then went under the post.
Yeah, it was an outstanding score, and an outstanding score to change the result of the game. Sabir, after trailing 12 points to 8, coming back and winning that game. Tries by Shalindra Alakon and Diluk Shadange for Trinity, converted by Lashen Vijaysurya, and for the winning side, Tanuja Madhuranga and Sajid Roshan scored the tries, converted 1 penalty and also a conversion from Tanuja Madhuranga, who has been the linchpin of this team. So it was a really good performance by Science. Unfortunately, the game was overshadowed by all the controversy that went on around it and after it. But you can't take away from the fact that Science actually managed to run the length of a field and score a try. And Trinity really need to look at themselves. Did we switch off a little too early? Did we think we had won this one? And what is the issue with regard to why we can't close out games? So that's something that Trinity need to ask themselves.
Absolutely. They were losing the momentum in the second half after playing so well in the first half. And also I saw one incident, well, few incidents that in the line-out, Shanaka, Rahul Kautantilaka, he is lifted, and then if you and me in the line-out, Shanaka, he should put the right hand or both hands. Instead, he can't put the left hand. I don't think it's legal.
The outside arm is not legal. That rule has been around for about 15
I think,
years.
I wonder whether it will be called for the next matches, or whether referees have a look on that.
Well, now that we've said it, they might. You know, we take a lot of flack for the stuff that we say on this show as well. But maybe that's something that...
The point is, because he plays for Sri Lanka, because we don't want to happen anything for when he play for the junior Tuskers. He already played last year as well. So this sort of tactical moves should be sorted now itself.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Charmin Deranga get called for a suspect bowling action in England. So you've got to ask yourselves, what are the officials doing here until these guys go to the international level and have suspect actions? Are we not picking up these little things that should be fixed at the point that they can be fixed?
Absolutely, and that's a game in Pallekelle where Science College won, and they will be playing Wesley College next week. And moving on to the next game, we had Shanaka at the Royal Complex. Royal College, the home team, versus St. Peter's College, and St. Peter's, they had a fairy tale first half, in fact first quarter, 20 minutes of the game, leading 19 points to nil, and they lost the game.
Yeah, it was 19 points to 12 at halftime. Actually, after that dream start for the Peterites, the game finished 33 points 24 in favour of Royal. Ibrahim Bari scoring a hat-trick at the back of that famous Royal Mall. Ashok Vijaykumar also scoring a try for all the controlling that he has been doing this season. And Lennox Kalyanaratne scoring in the last moment of the game as well. Ovin Aski has been one of the most consistent place kickers so far this season. He put over 4 conversions as well. And for St. Peter's, Diat Fernando scoring a couple of breakaway tries. Rahul Delpachitto, the big man, also getting among the try scorers, and Narendra Pereira and Steven Sivaraj converting 2 of those tries, Sabir. But once again, Royal versus Peters, always one of those upset jinx hoodoo games. Royal have always had a problem when they've got good sides against St. Peter's, and they've always feared this Peters team. So at the end of the first quarter of the game, they would have been thinking, oh no, here it goes again. But let's take this Royal team. They've lost only one match, and they lost that match in the last minute of the game. So they are a team that's really, really difficult to beat, Sabir. They've just lost that one game, and even against Trinity in the league, in the second leg of the Bradby, it was Trinity coming back into that game, and Royal then coming back to, they could have probably taken that line out and they may have scored a try that won that game for them. So the issue there is that Royal is not a team that can be beaten in the first 20 minutes. They're not a team that can be beaten in the first half. They're a team that needs to be beaten over 80 minutes. And they know that about themselves. They believe that, and they know that even if a team goes into a big lead, they are going to somehow claw their way back into this game. They play that sort of real self-belief rugby, and that's what came through on the day as well. They've got one weapon. We all know what that is, but that's what wins them games.
Absolutely, Ashok Vijaykumar marshalling the troops. He was so clear. Even the kickable penalties, no, they are not going to even for touch. They went for touch, but tap and run. That's what put St. Peter's into trouble. But also, St. Peter's having so much talent in the backs, Shanaka. I think Diat Fernando played as a fullback this time. Sandesh, the skipper, moved into the outside centre. But still, Teekshaneshan, the most promising player for St. Peter's, who scored 4 tries in the first game. But he still needs to develop a lot, Shanaka, in terms of his decision making. He's not sure when to pass and when to run, because once he could have run, he made a long cutout pass to Diat Fernando, which he knocked it on. And also in the second half, Avishka Hinpal made fewer decision-making errors when they had a penalty just outside the 22-meter. 6 minutes remaining, he could have put out on the full to gain territory. Instead, he took the tap, sent it to the and once again another knock-on and giving away position in their own territory.
Yeah, well, the Peterites, Sabir, for me, their biggest issue is the fact that they can't handle pressure. So when they went into that 19-point lead, suddenly the pressure was back on them to hold that lead. And that's something that they can't handle because their defensive structures go all over the place. And Diat Fernando is very fast, but his discipline needs to improve. on the field. And Sandesh Javikram, he started off as a fly half, then he's moved to centre, he's moved to fullback previously. So lots of positional changes, and players sometimes don't have the time to be able to understand what is required in that position. Theekshan Eshan, I think, is a real find for Sri Lankan rugby, for St. Peter's, for everything. But I think he needs a lot more games under his belt. I think he needs to play rugby a lot more, because he's not a creator, and playing at 12, you need to either have good distribution or you need to be able to hit good angles. And he's a very one-dimensional player yet. He's not Dhanushka Ranjan still. But maybe in the next couple of seasons he can develop into that. But right now he's very much the rough article that needs to be polished.
Indeed. So those are the all matches we had in the cup segment of Single Schools Rugby. And let's have a look at the points table, Shanaka. Isipathana leading clearly.
Yes, it's a very big lead for Isipathana in terms of the amount of tries that have been scored, but on the total points, they lead by 1.5 points over St. Thomas's. So both as the two unbeaten teams, Isipathana and St. Thomas's, have played 6 and won 6 games. Tries scored, Isipathana 43 tries to St. Thomas's 26, and converted 22, and St. Thomas's 17. So that's where there's a big quality difference between the end result of the two teams that we are seeing at the top of the table. Science will be very happy with that win over Trinity College, and they are in third place. Royal with that draw, if they didn't have that draw, they would probably be in third place as well, Sabir. So they will be a little unhappy about that draw against St. Joseph's, who have now been demoted to the next division, but they are coming up in 25.5 points, just behind Science College. Trinity, St. Peter's, Wesley and St. Anthony's there at the moment. Watch for that Wesley versus St. Peter's clash. That should be an interesting one, as well as Wesley versus Science College coming up. But if the injuries play a part, then that might be a foregone conclusion. But that clash between St. Peter's and Wesley is the key one, I think, to decide the 6th and 7th positions.
Indeed, and that's the points table for you. And this week on Friday, Royal will be playing St. Anthony's. That's in Bogambara grounds. And also on the Saturday, we have 3 games, one from Royal Complex. In fact, that's Science versus Wesley, and then Isipathana taking on Trinity. That's at CRNFC grounds, and on same day St. Thomas is taking on St. Peter's. Predictions?
Should be a fairly easy win for St. Thomas's, I would think, Sabir, if injuries haven't piled up since the St. Anthony's game. So if Coach Laga has a full side available for him, I think St. Thomas's should walk away with the Archibald Pereira trophy. Trinity playing Isipathana, I think Isipathana are too hot at the moment and suffering that defeat last week. Trinity will be demoralized. But Sean Vijay Singh is a very smart coach. He's a guy who just led Kandy to a triple crown, Sabir, and Salia Kumar also very astute rugby brain. So they are going to come back strong. But I think that's going to be a very close, entertaining game. It should be an exciting game to watch. And the other game, of course, on Friday, which is Royal travelling up to St. Anthony's. I think that the battle is more, for me, what's more fun to watch is Vaipa Gururatna versus Sanat Martis. Two of the most experienced guys in the game, guys who know rugby inside out, guys who are very smart tactically. So watch for Samuel Madhuanta to try and pull the puppet strings and see whether he can turn this big Royal pack around. I think Royal will still win the game, but it won't be as easy as they imagine it will be. And then we also had another match, which is Wesley taking on Science. And honestly, with the injuries for Wesley at the moment, I don't think that they'll pose too much of a threat to Science College. But if they had a full strength, if they have a full strength side, then things may be a little different.
So that's all we have for the breakdown segment of Single Schools Rugby League Week 6, and do join us for the Week 7. And until then, myself and Shanaka signing off for ThePapare.com.